Okay, so let's get started. It's my great pleasure to introduce Monica Lamb, who's a professor at college up the coast. And she's done an awful lot of things in this field of computer science. She has very broad research interests. She's had seminal contributions from, in compilers. She's designed, among many other things, possibly the most widely used instruction level parallelism transformation loop pipelining. She's done many other seminal things in the compiler field. She's worked also in architectures, security, social networks. She's an ACM fellow. She's a co-author of probably the most popular compiler book that hopefully you all read back to back and know by heart, the Dragon Book. She's a serial entrepreneur, as she says in her bio, which, unlike a serial killer, is a good thing. And she's, she's a co-founder of Tensilica, Mocha 5, and more recently Omlet, and that's what she's going to talk about today.
Thank you, Alex. All right, good morning. Well, if you want to participate in a live demo, you can download Omlet from the App Store, and then you can chat with me, and we can exchange information during and also after the talk, okay? All right, so, well, thank you for having me here. And what I want to talk about is what I would call the billion people privacy problem. Sorry, 1.4 billion people privacy problem. You guys know what I'm talking about? Huh? Yeah. It's like, why am I working on this problem? How many people here are on Facebook? How many people are not on Facebook? That's easier. Whoa! This is a computer science department. For those of you who are on Facebook, actually maybe those who aren't is because you have read the end user license agreement. How many people have read the terms of service?
Some of them.
Some of them. You know what it says? You do? Okay, I think it is good that we all read it together. Okay, if you look at the terms of service, the first line is these 4 simple words. You own your data. So I was reading it, it's like, whoa, maybe I don't have anything to complain about. But this terms of service is very long after those 4 little words, right? And it's like, and in addition, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so I just pulled out a few choice sentences. This is a very next line. It says, you grant us a non-exclusive, transferable, sub-licensable, royalty-free, worldwide license to use any IP content that you post. What does it say?
You get to use
Huh?
that they get to use your data whenever they want.
Yeah. It actually says all this is 4 simple words. It says, we own it too. All right? That's what it says. And what is going on is that people think of ownership as exclusive. And you own it, and so they don't, but that's not the case. They own it too. But they decided that those belongs, you just need 4 words for that, but you need that many words for we own it too. Now, just in case you don't understand what that means, they spell it out. They say, you permit a business or other entity to pay us to display your name and or profile picture with your content or information without any compensation to you. Okay? They own you. They seriously own you. And in case that's not enough, they said, you understand we may not always identify paid services and communications as such. It's like all of a sudden they can put my name on a billboard and make me sell cigarettes for them. And that is all legal because of the terms of service that we sign. Is this real? I mean, this is almost like impossible. I remember the days when I was a grad student, if I was, like if in the quals, when people ask me how to build a sharing system, if I suggest this, I would not pass. Okay, it's like, well, I'll just create a repository and let everybody put some data in. I own it all, and I'll share them according to my rules. I mean, I will not pass because that just violates everybody's right to have their own data. And this is where we are today, 1.4 billion people. Right. And this is the picture that I just, this is a switchboard in the good old days. And in those days, you can just hope that these people are ethical and they won't tap into your conversation, right? But here, Facebook says, we promise to tap into your conversations, by the way. And we own that in the meantime, all right? I mean, how did we go back to, this is like way back, I don't know, last century. Why do we have to have somebody monitor all our communication? Is that fair? Everybody says it is fair because you didn't pay for it. And I say, baloney, if I look at my phone, I paid $100 a month of data plan, and you have to pay $100 a month for your data plan. Why is it that I cannot share a picture with you easily? Why do I have to pay why do I have a free service that owns my data? Okay, it's not free. I pay a lot to be able to take pictures and communicate with my phone. So there is something terribly wrong going on. If you think this is bad, things are actually getting worse. All right. How many people know about Wechat? All right. So if you haven't heard about Wechat, this is probably the most important thing you get out of this talk. Okay. Wechat is taking over China. So you may have heard of WhatsApp. WhatsApp is kind of like first generation messaging. It says that, what it is like free SMS. But Wechat took it much further. It becomes a platform. While you are chatting, you can do all kinds of different things with it. The first thing one of the things they introduced is gaming. And they just introduced games so that you can play games with your friends. They are the #1 game revenue maker in the world. They beat EA by 50%. And their growth is like 40% every year type of thing. Why? Because they have 400 or 500 million Chinese people opening up WeChat every day, 10 times a day to communicate with their friends. I was in China last week. Everybody they're exchanging WeChat accounts. They don't exchange emails, they don't exchange phone numbers, just WeChat accounts, okay? And so they make, $3.5 billion first half of last year on games alone. They do produce some games, but they are not the top games, okay? So that's online commerce. They also can dominate offline commerce. Last year I was in China. I couldn't get a cab. The reason is that WeChat was running a promotion. They gave the cab drivers, 10 cents extra or something. And all the cab drivers are picking up calls only through WeChat, all right? And overnight, they can just they can put up a service like this. Chinese New Year last year, they introduced P2p payment. You can pay your kids or your friends' kids like the red packet over Chinese New Year. They just roll it out overnight. It's millions and millions of transactions taking over Alipay, which is the P2p payment in China. They just introduced the bank. It's called WeBank. And they basically is the place where you talk to artists, talk to athletes, companies are buying ads, putting chats into the system, talking to people. Banks and airlines are giving you information about updates of your account and the travel information, all through WeChat. Before long, all your recommendations are going to come socially through WeChat. You don't have to go browse and search all that much anymore. It is really kind of like taking over the browser that we have. It is really a combination of browser, SMS, and emails. Okay, this is WeChat. And what I expect to happen is that Facebook will just have to copy WeChat and then they bring it between Facebook and WhatsApp. They can reach, 2 billion people overnight. So they are really controlling, they have the ability to talk to 500 million Chinese people. Basically, they own communication, the mobile communication. It is pretty worrisome. Anyway, so this is where we are today. And so people ask me, people ask the questions, do people really care about privacy? And I said, well, they should, because not only are we sharing, sharing is general, it's not just for pictures of weddings and parties, but we have to share for education, finance, health, commerce. None of that should sit inside somebody else's repository that they own. And if you don't care about privacy from the consumer's point of view, you may want to care about the fact that we're seeing these monopolies in the making. The Facebook is one version, Wechat is another version. They are controlling the industry because they're controlling communication and sharing. Is that where is the open competition? So in 2007, we wrote a proposal to NSF. That's when the iPhones just first came out. We said to them, it's like, look, you got a new computer revolution coming up. Last time, when the PCs came up, within a few years, we've got the Wintel monopoly, okay? So universities teach RISC, we teach Linux, but everybody in the world are using Windows and x86 instruction sets. So we asked the government to say, put some money to talk about, to fund open systems, because everybody is trying to lock people into their technologies. And so they did. This is 2008. We got one of the first, these NSF expeditions. It's a $10 million grant. And this is the project that funded two halves. There are various projects. There are two main projects. One is the Software-Defined Networks project led by Nick McEwen. And of course, that was to disrupt Cisco. And we have this project, and this is really to disrupt software networking. So what I want to talk about is that, we didn't just try to do it in university. We really want to take it to the world. So there are really three parts that I'm going to talk about. The research part, what is it that we went through? And a short section, a little bit about what it means to bring it out to the world. We started a company based on the research results. And what we see here is like a very different distributed messaging-based system. And you can change the world and how we do many, many different things. So I'm going to have 7 predictions of how things may evolve as a result of this kind of a foundation. So we started in 2008. In the first 3 years, we have 3 failed attempts. Okay, every year we came up with an idea, and they didn't work. All right. So I thought it would be interesting to talk about those. So the first thing we did is, like any computer science scientist would do, is like you want to distribute Facebook, you distribute the server, right? So the first thing we did is that everybody, we call this the Purple Project, and everybody has can have their own server and put the data out there. How many people have remember Diaspora? All right, in 2009, Facebook kept changing their privacy settings, and 3 New York University students said that I want to create a distributed Facebook. It made it into all the newspapers, New York Times and everybody, and they raised $200,000 to start a company. Okay, just people donating $200,000. But by the time that they made the press, we were already shutting down a project that is a superset of what they are proposing as a research project. And the reason was that I asked my students to bring up their server in their dorms, and they couldn't. Even the dorms, even our CS students couldn't bring up a server. It's like, forget that, it's not going to work. Why? Because we don't have public IP addresses in the server, and homes don't have public IP addresses either. So what we discovered is that it is really not deployable. You don't ask people to build these distributed servers. And the worst thing, and the one lesson we learned is that there are people who care about privacy. The world has spoken. The majority of them, they don't, all right? So in order to make it a success, it has to be interoperable between people who do and people who don't. An example is like email. We have, there are 3 major email systems. that consumers can choose. But because there are 3 of them, that means that it is not a monopoly. There is open competition. So if one person gives up, says that I can give you 8 gigabytes free, somebody else will match it, and there is competition. And individually, you can put up your own email server. So now you have interoperability. That's the right way to go. Starting from somewhere where everybody is expected to bring their own is just a non-starter. You don't want to start with a network of people who care all that much about privacy. You know why? Because you have a bunch of very antisocial people. It's just not going to fly. So that's year number 1. The second year, we did a lot of work on connecting devices right on the spot. We call it junction. And you might have seen some work from Qualcomm on AllJoin, and now there's AllSeen, OIC. And they are more or less that same things, and we kind of started early in 2010. And what we discovered is that local interactions are interesting, but we should treat it as an optimization. That means that you need to have a global namespace, and when we happen to be local, then we can connect locally as an optimization. Okay? But that's just not going to be good enough for anything. But if you have a global namespace, then turning into a local optimization when you connect things on the spot makes sense. So what did we do in the 3rd year? Well, we talked about email. We realized that that's the right model of how we store data. I said, why don't we just use email as a repository? They already exist. There are a lot of accounts. And why don't we build an app platform that basically transfer data via the email protocol? It's kind of interesting, but email is too old, it is insecure, and IMAP is fragmented. It is really not intended to be used in a very good and real-time way. So 3 years later, we have these 3 failed attempts, but we took many of these ideas and we came up with the picture of what we think works. And it's so obvious now that we look back. So this is the architecture that we came up with. So today we have these phones they're available 24/7, right? And we each own it. It's our own little server. And we treat them like they are dumb little thin client devices attached to the mothership called Facebook. All right. I mean, that is really not taking full advantage of what the phones can do. The phones should be able to connect with each other, but we can't today, technically. Why? It's because of TCP/IP addressing, right? I don't know my TCP/IP address. It's a mobile device, and of course I don't know yours. So my phone cannot route to your phone. So what we need to change is the ability for the phones to connect with each other. My app on my phone can connect with your app on your phone as long as I know your phone number. That's a very basic functionality that we don't have. And of course, today we don't just go by phone numbers, but emails and Facebook IDs and so forth. So what we are proposing here in the middle is a messaging protocol based on existing identities. And it is a group protocol. So if one phone wants to talk to, say, 3 other phones, it would send a message with all those destinations to the server. So there is a server. Okay, you need a server because the phones are not going to route for you. Okay, so you go to the server and you say these are the messages for these identities. Each person, when they have each person will identify themselves to the server. They says, I am this phone number, I'm this email address, and now I have this device, or I have these sets of devices. Okay. And all the endpoints are validated. So they send you an SMS, they send you use OAuth, whatever. They validate that you have the identity. Then when the message shows up, it will use the standard notification system from Google or from Apple, and they push the notification to your device, telling you that you have a message waiting for you, and you can now go and fetch it from the device, from the server. And now at that point, the server delivers the data. It can throw the data away. So this server that we are running keeps the data for 2 weeks because sometimes your devices are offline. And the most important thing here is that this is nothing but a utility. The fact that it moves the data doesn't give it the right to own the data or save the data in any way. And this is the only way you can create a universal system. If this messaging system says, I own the data, I have a closed system, everybody will just be fighting to create their own messaging system, which is the war we are seeing today. There are many big messaging systems fighting each other. And what we're saying here is that we just need a simple universal communication protocol for all the phones to connect with each other, and this system cannot own data. And then at that point, you have a messaging system. We can create an API over it so that you can have apps talk on this system. So what I'm showing here is a set of 4 phones, and they are playing Scrabble. Okay, Scrabble is a very simple app, and it's like I play the word hello in row 4, column 3. It's only a little message, right? But today, how do we have to host Scrabble games? You have to put up a scalable Scrabble game just in case that there are millions of Scrabble games going on at the same time. Why? You know, you can just run it on their phones, and they use a generic messaging protocol, and they coordinate with all the with a group of 4 people who want to play Scrabble, and now you can have a distributed game running on top of this messaging system without a server. It doesn't mean that you cannot build things with servers, of course. I'm just pointing out that this is a new modality that it's obvious that we don't have today. And then now you have an app API, and then you say, okay, so what are you going to do? You deliver all the data to the phones. What if you lose your phone? Well, the standard problem, the solution to that is obvious. You back up your phone. So in this case, every person gets to decide where they want to keep their data. So if you are a Chinese citizen, you may want to put the data in the Baidu cloud. All right. So different countries can have different clouds. This solves one of the biggest problems that we have seen lately, and that is that Google is not in China. Why isn't Google in China? Because of the data. In a sense, it is their liability because they own so much of the citizens' data. They don't want to share it with the Chinese government, but obviously they share it with the American government. We all learned from Snowden. And of course it doesn't really make sense for a single proprietary company to own a country's data, and this company belongs to a foreign country in a sense. So this is really it is much more of a design that is more international. It's like, and by the way, I always believe that if you hold on to things that you shouldn't, things will break somewhere, okay? Here, everybody owns their data, and you get a choice, and that is really the better way to go. So what we have done essentially is that we take all the data in Facebook and turn it inside out, okay? So first of all, people share data in real time using the phones. For kids who don't care about clouds or don't have a cloud or don't want to have a cloud, they can still function, okay? This is basically essentially Wechat in the middle, and then a distributed Facebook wrapping on the outside. I just wanted to point out that we came up with this picture before WhatsApp came out. And this is probably the reason why we can be where we are today, because we know how it plugs in into the persistent data store. And the concept that messaging is the core is obvious. You have a bunch of phones, you want to build distributed systems. At the bottom is messaging, okay? That's not something we can give up. So anyway, so this is the architecture, and we published that in 2012. And this is the communication platform. And at the bottom is the open messaging system, and above it is what we call what we have built is really a distributed semantic file system. What does that mean? So on a PC, we all have files and directories, and we all know the files and directories are organized by names. Now, if I give you a mobile phone, what are the names of the files? They all have names. But they are something like img3725.jpg or something. So what does this name mean? What do those names mean? Nothing to you. So that's why on the mobile devices, it is time for us to bring in the concept of the semantic file system. You recall everything based on who, what, how, when, where, okay? And it is distributed because the data are all around, all over, it's a choice of the end users. And on top of that, there is a chat program that is the Omlet chat program. Think of it as the operator console, okay? All the messages that get sent through can be viewed in the messaging itself, but it is actually potentially routing data for all the other apps. So we have a lot of APIs. There is a native, you can write native code that uses the messaging system, and so you can have a social app by making calls to the APIs on the phone. Okay, you don't have to go to Facebook to get the graph because the contacts, the groups are on your phone. The same groups of people can be used for different apps. There is a special category here is the OEM apps. This is for people who are trusted. We can show the OEM the entire database of information. If you are not an OEM, then you can only see the data that belongs to your app. You can also plug in from a server so that you can interface with the system. What is most interesting is actually the P2p Web Apps. You know what web apps are, but they're usually server client. P2p Web Apps means that now you can have a web page that connects phones via phones, phones to phones via the messaging system. So it allows you to have very thin programmable interfaces, and it's something that is very, very easy to build. Just in a sense, you now have a P2P browser that allows people to interact with each other. So this is the architecture. All right, so that's the basic idea. By 2012, my research group really wanted to start this company, and so they dragged me out of Stanford, and I was on leave for 2 years to help make this happen. So what we're talking about is trying to disrupt so many things. The server-client architecture, the biggest giants in the industry. But the interesting thing here is that when you have an open system, you can bring in very powerful partners. So here is an example of how we stack up against everybody else, right? You've got Facebook that has the full stack. They have messaging, they have app platform, and they have the social network. Very powerful. Wechat, they started with a chat, and they're basically a chat. They do have a platform. It's mostly a closed platform, but it is very, very powerful. They are leading in the space. And of course, Apple has a little bit of everything. They're a little bit weak on messaging, by the way, because it's not an app platform. But they do have the app. It doesn't have the same kind of app platform. Of course, they have iOS and they have the iCloud. So what we are doing here is to say that we are just a messaging system. I don't own the rest of the stack. I make it available for everybody to build whatever they need. And now we are bringing all the partners to, we're a neutral party that everybody can work with to create a new ecosystem. And you can have different Android phones, and of course it will interact with the iPhone as well as an over-the-top app. And we're bringing all the different clouds together. We're making it available for all the kinds of people writing apps. It is an open platform. We don't control the games. Oh, did I mention that the games on Wechat, they're mostly their games, and if you want to distribute a game through them, they charge you. Do you know how much they charge? What do you think?
30%.
30%? That's what Facebook charges Zynga. Wechat charges, according to one company that I talked to, 85%. Okay. Why? Because if they're playing your game, they're not playing Wechat's game. So why do they want to open it up? That's the difference. Okay. So now we are saying this is an open system. We don't do games. We don't do everything. Everybody, it's an open market. So that's the reason why we have a chance. So this is the new ecosystem, and it's basically the same picture. And the good news is that we have already been distributed by ASUS is our first partner. Huawei has announced in CES this year that these are not all my partners. These are all the partners we would like to have. But ASUS has announced has been distributing us for a year. Huawei has announced they are partnering with us, and there is also a third pretty well known OEM, but they have not announced yet, and they're going out second quarter this year. So we are moving in as a platform that is available to to like over 100 million. There will be over 100 million devices that our partners are selling. So we have made some progress. So the chat has been available. We launched it at South by Southwest March last year. South by Southwest is where Twitter and Foursquares was launched, and so it was also the most tweeted app at the show, which is good. We have a lot of press because people just are tired of the Facebook way, in a sense. So we get some really nice quotes. The mention from VentureBeat is really referring to the PAWMI project, the NSF grant. And it includes also the software-defined network, which is easy to point to as reinventing the internet. So we kind of share in that glory a little bit. And then they have a printed article on us about how we are an assault on the Facebook model. Anyway, and we also have users who really like us. They compared us to a bunch of apps, and they think that we are better because we are much more, we allow people to be more creative. And we are getting some, getting going in terms of getting users and getting developers on our system. So that's ongoing. And if you buy this concept of an open distributed system, all kinds of things will change in the future. Okay? So that's what I want to talk about. And I have 7 predictions. Okay, number 7. The P2p Web Apps will replace a lot of these, what I call siloed experience. Let me explain that. But before I do that, I know that not everybody understands how chats and apps can go together. I want to show you the user experience on the chat, okay? And the best way to explain the user experience is to show you an experience. This is a true life experience that I had. I was watching a football game. I was sitting here. This guy sitting in front of me. Every single time we have a touchdown, he would get up. This guy would get up and take off his shirt and chest bump his friend. But he's doing it in public. I don't think that he minds me taking a picture of him at all. Right? So they do it every single time, and we were winning. We made a lot of touchdowns in that game. So I have my phone ready. So every time he gets up, so I took a picture and I share it with my team. And so Ian, one of my former students, he took the picture, click it, and he uses a little tool called Nudifier because he thinks that those guys are not nude enough, So he's just having a little bit of fun, Nudify the picture. And then when he just finishes the editor, it goes straight into the feed, okay? So you don't have to download, do something, upload, and all that. And to some extent, this is collaboration, all right? You're not just viewing what people post, you're now taking pictures, editing it, and returning. And this kind of collaboration, if it is not easy, people won't do it, okay? And it's just something because it is so easy to do, and they have what do you do with a Nudifier app? You want to do something and share, right? And then within seconds, within maybe a couple of minutes, my other student did this. So they can edit the picture, put comments in it, and poke fun at the picture and stuff like that. But once I realized they really liked this, so I decided to show them a GIF of what is going on about them in live action. I suppose this guy didn't take off his shirt. But anyway, so the reason why it is so easy is because, oh, look at all the likes I got. It's like they massively like that. So this is fun, it is all interactive. And the reason is because we have these, it's an app drawer. It's a drawer of apps that you can open, and then you can apply it to anything in the team. So whatever you do when you are done, it is shared with the chat. This is why the chat protocol is so is so good for collaboration and communication. So give you an example. This is a little app that a student, that Will made. It takes them like 3 to 5 days. And so here, people use stickers to express themselves. Here, you can record a little GIF of yourself, and whenever you want to say something, you can say, I love you, and then you just stick it in there, and it's so much more expressive than whatever stickers you can buy on the web. By the way, Line sells a lot of, they make a lot of money selling stickers. But this is an app, we have an open API platform, so anybody can write a little app and extend the experience. So, so how do you do that? It's very, very simple. So here is an example of a little sharing that we have added. We have one of our employees in the startup. She doesn't know how to program, but she really likes the game 2048. And she got us to teach her how to turn the 2048 into a social game. All you have to do is to take the game, and then it's an open source game, and you add 14 lines. All it does is that it takes the high score and write it back out to the chat. Everything is abstracted away. You just say, post to the chat. And now, whenever I finish the game, I can tell people what I score, and everybody wants to beat me. Yeah, that kind of thing. So you can take a little web app and turn it into a P2p web app in a matter of 14 lines. Okay. So. Here's another example. This app called Snap, when you run it, it will take a picture. It will show you a picture for 5 to 10 seconds, and it will destroy the picture. You know what that is? That is like Snapchat. And this is written by Rishab. Rishab is a high school student, and he built this on a weekend. He's a very sharp high school student. But at any rate, it was a weekend. Because you don't have to create a network just so that people can share a picture that disappears. All you have to do is to take a programmable chat and extend it with the function that you want. And mind you, nobody is going to use this chat, this Snapchat, this Snap app. It's really a demo because it's old, right? I mean, you already have seen it. But there are many, many high school students out there that have imaginations that can take something and do something and stick it into this chat app and let everybody enjoy it, okay? So this really changes. Instead of thinking about every single sharing requires you to build out a social network, you just take the connections you have on the phone and then you just extend it with a little web app. So this is what I mean by replacing these siloed network experience and social network experiences with just these P2P web apps. Snapchat is worth what? 10? Is it 10 or 20? I don't even lost count. $1 billion, right? Because they have users. But the whole point is that every phone connecting with people, they're all users if you look at it this way. Here's another example that you guys may appreciate. And this is GitChat. GitChat was, what we did is we spend most of our time coding. We want to socialize coding. So what we did is that we take the Git commits and send it into a chat. Because you know why? Most people don't even put comments when they commit something. Why? Because nobody reads them. All right? But now we take the chat in real time, we share it with everybody on the team. Now you have an incentive to write a comment. And it's like sometimes you have a huge bug and nobody knows how to fix it and somebody stays up overnight, 3 a.m. and they check in a big fix. And then the next morning, everybody would say, oh, I like it. And then you get all the likes, everybody is acknowledging what is going on in real time. And then it is, and then we make this a social experience. And now you can congratulate each other, and sometimes you may spot a problem and stuff. And the point here is that it is so lightweight that people can easily keep track, keep in contact with something like this. It's like I I would never have looked at any of the comments. I would have no clue who is checking in what. But now I do. I get a sense of what's going on, even though I'm not checking in code myself anymore. So this is an example. So there is a company, by the way, that provides this function of Git talk. And I think they charge like $7 per engineer per month. Okay. But this is free, and it costs us like 2 days to hook the server into this, and this is open source software for everybody. So now, these are just simple examples. You can imagine Evite, same thing. Actually, a high school student did the equivalent. So you can invite people without going to a server and giving up all your email addresses. You can doodle. WebEx, this is one of my favorite, is that you should be able to do a remote slideshow. I put this, people are using iPad. They put the slide in the chat. And then as you speak, as you advance the slides, everybody sees the slides move. Okay, this is so much easier than trying to set up a WebEx session because friends are already talking on the chat. So there are many examples like this. You do not need one company for every single kind of sharing, okay, if we do it right. So that's number 7. So number 6, we should be able to be much more dynamic when we exchange information in a mobile group. So for example, how many people have phones with connection to the internet today? Everybody here? So I'm going to take my phone. That's why I have my phones out. I started a chat, and I'm going to take a picture of you guys and share it right. Oh, somebody has already joined. So I'm going to take a picture of all of you. All right, I'll take 2 pictures. Share. All right. Camera. I just shared 2 pictures with you guys. If you go download this, you go to the section on nearby chat, and now you have a copy of those pictures that I sent you. That's how way it should be. Right? I don't need to know your Facebook IDs, right? So what we have is what we call on-the-spot sharing. Let me give you an example. Ben is one of my students who sent that funny picture. Anyway, he got married, and at the wedding, we started a chat. Everybody at the wedding joined. And now different people can take pictures. All the pictures are shared in real time with people in the chat room. So here are just some examples of pictures and GIFs. And what you get in the end is a lovely photo album on everybody's phone, okay? So this is nice because you don't have to give your phone to somebody else to take a picture of you, because everybody really wants the pictures of themselves. And they don't really like to wait for the people to put pictures up on Facebook. And here you just sit back, people take a picture of you, and you like the picture like that, and then you just sit back and it is already on your phone in your own album. So that's an example of what we did at a wedding. Here's what I did at a conference. I was at a Tizen conference, and I was giving this talk, and so in the same way, I took a picture with the people in the audience, and then I said, you know what, I'm going to take a picture of the audience with my watch. It's the same thing. The watch is just a smaller form factor. So while I was taking, the quality of the watch is not as good, the pictures. So while I was taking a picture with my watch, somebody in the audience took a picture and shared on the chat of the same thing as I was taking a picture of them, they're taking a picture of me. And so this is off stage. And look at that picture. There's something wrong with this picture. The picture is mirror image, and the reason is that the person in the back room also joined the chat, and he took a picture of me from the back room, and so now we have a picture of the same event, like all in one fell swoop, dynamically inside the chat with 0 preparation other than people just joining the chat that is broadcast in location. Here's another example. We did it at a concert, and Gabriel and Justin are one of the top DJs. And they like what we're doing. And this is at South by Southwest. And they started a chat, and people in the audience joined the chat. And now you can request songs, and they can tell you what songs they are playing, and you can interact with the people in the audience because it's so loud. You can't even talk to the person next to you. And then we have a good fun time of doing something mobile together dynamically. So the point here is like any group can do this for a wedding, for a conference, whatever. You don't need one app for weddings, one app for conferences, one app for whatever. This is just plain and simple, a little chat app that allows everybody to join and share whatever data structures that they want. And at the conference, it was kind of neat because you go to these conferences, there are all kinds of people, but you hardly talk to anybody. But because of the chat, we were talking to each other, and we were exchanging notes about what to do, about the Samsung watch that they were giving out, and when is it being distributed, and stuff, and that you can even carry a conversation after the conference. So that's number 6, is like we should be much more dynamic than what we're used to today. All right, what's number 5? We're going to see a new breed of phones. It is what we call natively social phones. So here is an example. When we say that ASUS integrates with us, it is not just preloading the chat. We are an app platform. So what they did is that they turned their native apps into social apps. So for example, this is their photo gallery. I said that we exchange all the pictures in the wedding. They're very nice. It's a very nice photo album. It's a collaborative album because the pictures are taken by different people at the same time, okay? For the same event. And where would you like to see the pictures of a wedding? You want to see it in your gallery. So this is what ASUS did. And this is the standard Android gallery. They added a chat room page, a chat room tab. It allows you to see all these events now that correspond to pictures that are taken by different groups. So here is the wedding that we're at. And when you click into it, you get this view. You get a nice top picture. You get all these people that are there. You can click on that person. You can start chatting with these people. It is fully integrated into the phone. And now you have the photo album. It is very nicely laid out. And you have social features. Okay, so now you can go and view the picture. And when you go and view the picture, you see who liked the pictures. You can like the pictures yourself. You can start commenting on the pictures right in the gallery of your phone. You don't need to go find friends to join in the Facebook before you can do anything social. We kind of unnetworked social. This is just plain and simple sharing with anybody that you want in the native form factor of your phone. And you're using it is the gallery, it is the music player, it can be social, the browser, the maps. And once it is being distributed, then everybody can be building social apps. You just have to add, for ASUS to do this, they did not write a single line of server code. By the way, you can even create a photo album and you put other people's name on the photo album, and everybody can drop pictures into that photo album, and everybody is storing data in their own repository. Okay, this is not the iCloud kind of thing, right? So ASUS was able to do this without writing a single line of server code. All they have to do is to write the UI, and they call the database the API. The database is basically the semantic file system, and you recall everything based on who, what, where, how, when. To illustrate what we mean by semantic file system, suppose I want to look up the bride's mother's name. I don't know her name, but I know the bride's name. I can go to the bride's name, I click on it, I see all the events that I am with, that I have anything to do with the bride, and I saw the wedding, and I go to the wedding, and then when I look up the people, then I will see my, her mother's name. So now this is navigating through the semantic web of information so that I can go from people to pictures, from pictures to people, and this is what we mean by a semantic file system. And as a result, what we are beginning to create is a common platform so that it can go across multiple OEMs. The shared gallery that ASUS wrote it will go across and interoperate with other phones. And our goal really is to have this to be to be installed on every phone. Like every phone today has a browser, but that is a server client browser. What we want is to kind of put this up on every phone so that they can do social browsing with their peers. Okay, so this is ongoing, and we're pretty excited about this. So that's a concept of a natively social phones. The contacts belong to the phones, and now all the apps can work off the same contact, and one third party owns that social graph. Now the next topic is what we call an Uberized vertical social network. You know what Uber is, right? Uber is kind of a new breed of network. They bring the drivers and the riders together, but they don't own the drivers, they don't own the riders, okay? They take a cut across, but the drivers do not really work for Uber in the same way. I mean, they don't, you know, I suppose they kind of are Uber drivers, but they don't pay them, you know, they don't charge them in the same kind of way a cab company would charge if they are running the company of drivers. And why do I think that this is important? Because if you go back to the beginning of Facebook, it was started with a very specific purpose. It's for the boys to meet the girls, okay, 2004. But now it has become generic. And even Facebook today has to buy up other properties because Facebook is no longer, you know, it's kind of like generic. Everybody is using it. You no longer want to use Facebook to, for example, do games because because the games will spam your network and your grandmothers are on it and stuff. Okay, it has kind of lost the concept of a special purpose network. But there are various special purpose networks. There are this group communication, and now there are these vertical social networks. And what we imagine in the future is that there will be many, many more vertical social networks. Because we don't own people's data, we become a good partner to power up all kinds of social networks. So for example, edX. edX is obvious, right? Students have to work with each other. How do they work with each other today? They use Facebook groups, they use Google Docs. Guess what? You just cut out the billion people in China because Facebook and Google Docs are not in China. But we all have mobile devices. Using this platform so people can host their data everywhere, this is an example of a platform where you can provide sharing that cross this border because the data are now treated in the proper way. So we believe that there will be many more of these vertical social networks. And because of the tool, like the chat being available, sharing made very easy, a lot of people can build these social networks very easily. So that's number 4. Number 3, you're gonna see chat everywhere. Chat is, as I said, it is replacing SMS, phone calls, emails, browser, and even Facebook. We see that all in full. It is already the way it is in China. It is going to take over because it is much more compelling than all these other properties. Let me show you some example. Take eBay. eBay has a problem. They cannot reach their users via email because they're phished to death. Everybody receives mails from eBay that are not eBay. Right? They have no way now to notify anybody via a communication via email. So this is we wrote this before WeChat happened, but that's happening in China. So the concept here is that when you have a chat app, you write down you sign up and you provide your identities for these different groups. So for example, eBay, you would log into eBay. The minute you log into eBay, you will have a chat with eBay. And it is, because everything is validated, phishing and spamming, those kinds of problems pretty much are minimized. Of course, there will be its own version, but you don't have to do all those crazy things because the endpoints are validated. So once you get into eBay, you know you're talking to eBay. And eBay is going to be very personalized with you. Nobody really wants to browse on a mobile device anymore. But eBay knows your history. They can start talking to you. It says, oh, by the way, your favorite seller has these these headbands that you would like. Would you like to buy them? And by the way, I'm Tina, your personal assistant. Of course, your personal assistant is a bot. But this is really the interface into how you deal with companies. Have you heard of Xiaobing or Xiaoace? This is the Microsoft chatbot that is hugely popular in China. And the amazing thing about this chatbot is that it has a 17-year-old girl personality. It's very clever because now people chat with this girl. And then the girl knows about you, and they completely personalize the conversation with you. And it also interfaces to large companies, so she can sell you things much better than Google can. Okay, this is the new round of advertising. Okay, here's just some obvious examples where the banks or the airlines will talk to you. One of Stanford's biggest fears is that we have an earthquake, and all the parents call up and say, "Where are my kids?" And you will have to use social media to get interactions with the people in the school to figure out where these students are. And by the way, because there are apps, then you can have very contextual apps that is specific to the situation you are in. So you don't have to go stand in line and says, "I am so-and-so, I just got off this flight." They already know. You just have to go to the chat, okay? So that's what I think will happen, is that there will be a lot of personalized app-supported chat as a B2C to B interface. Okay, there are two more. What is the next big one? Internet of Things, okay? So Cisco CEO says that Internet of Things is worth $19 trillion. Do you believe it? I do. $19 trillion. I do, because why? Google just put up $3.2 billion for a thermostat company. Thermostat company. Go tell Honeywell that this is worth so much money. Why? The thermostat? Why? It's in the data. They're getting data from every household who has those thermostats. And you know who has to talk to the thermostat? Your security camera. Because nobody is home, please turn down the heat. Okay, now they also bought the security camera company. And if what it means is that everything communicates via the centralized server, now this is really then everything has been plugged into the Google data center. Okay, so I talk to a lot of high school kids, and they don't really care about Facebook looking at their data, but they actually worry about this. They don't like the fact that all the security cameras and all the devices are going to the same data center. And the same picture that I showed you earlier about distributing Facebook can be used to distribute the Internet of Things. So in other words, when we think about distributed Internet of Things, the standard literature, they all start with a big data center, okay? That's where all the data go. But what I believe in is I just want to remotely control my thermostat with my phone. Just hook it up based on the messaging system, and the data can have a choice of where they go. And so this is really the bottom, the foundation for distributed Internet of Things. So that's the number 2 prediction. If we succeed, you will see the distribution. Okay. Now what is number 1? If this is how things go, we will have a lot of devices talking to each other, P2P. Today, our system is built as an overlay network using Amazon, and it's fine. It is just really the beginning. But eventually, if this is the way it is, then there will be a lot of P2P traffic, and the protocol will work its way into the networking equipment. And my colleague did the software-defined networks. It would be a perfect example of a killer app for the software-defined network, and we will finally plug these two things together. That was the goal from day one, but we were so far apart. But now we are beginning to understand the stack, and this is how we may connect back in the future. This is You remember the project that we had was POMI, Programmable Open Mobile Internet 2020. Okay, that was for the year 2020. We still have 5 years to go. And so what I want to say here is that this is really, I believe, the beginning of distributed computing. This is the fourth big computer generation. We started with mainframes. When we get the PCs, everybody is happy because we have control of our processing power. We can do whatever we want. But we don't want to lug the PCs around. And we went straight, we went to the cloud, where now you have accessibility from all your device, all the PCs in the world. That is fair. But now we have these mobile devices. I have more computing power than any company will ever devote to me. Just like in those days, you'll have more computing power on the PCs than what can be available to you in the mainframe. And this, billions and billions of phones later, don't tell me that video sharing is done via YouTube. Okay, it just does not scale. That shouldn't be the technology we have when we have the billions of mobile devices and very, very strong interconnectivity. And I believe this is really the beginning of distributed computing. And it will change because I think that we will get the privacy economy. What privacy economy means is an economy where it is built on the fact that people do have private data. And I think that this is very exciting. We are at a very, very exciting time in the revolution of computers. And I hope that you guys will jump in and pitch in. All right, okay, so thank you for your time.
Maybe time for a couple of questions. But Harry, I guess.
Okay, so I guess I can see two situations in which Omlet works well. Number one, there are a relatively small number of people involved. Number two, like chat, you wouldn't have like 1,000 people participating into one single chat. Or number two, you don't need to do global data analytics. Like for example, if you want to know like communities, programmer communities in Southern California, you can do it in Facebook, but you cannot do it in Omlet because data are decentralized and distributed, right?
So the first thing is that we have a lot of technology for public forums. I don't need to solve that problem.
Okay.
But using a public forum technology to help tell people this is how they don't want to do personal communication, that's wrong. So it is complementary to this.
Right.
But if you see what's going on with Wechat, they are now also doing public conversations as well. But it is not there. That's not where the strength is. The second thing is, do you really want to? There are upside and downside to aggregating all people's data in one repository. And perhaps that's the reason why the people in Germany are so interested in this kind of approach. Right? And there's a history behind that that says that, do we really care? I mean, sure, people like to get aggregated data, but is it to our individual interests? Whose interests are we serving to have all this public information? But on the other hand, I'll tell you what I think will happen in the future. I show you that the data are still being collected. I predict that there will be 3 or 4 players that will still collect the bulk of the consumer data. Because a lot of people that said, I don't care, I'm not going to spend a dime on it. You can serve me ads all you want. It's just like email. There will be 3, hopefully, you start with 1 and eventually maybe there will be 3 players that will host your data and will serve you ads, and there will be plenty of big data to go around at that point. Okay? But it is now interoperable. And that is what, when people talk about portability, yeah, you can take your data, but what am I going to do with my data if I can't interoperate with other people? So this completely changes that.
How does Omlet make money, and shouldn't it be non-profitable?
Do you know how much money Mozilla makes? Mozilla is a non-profit company. They make $300 million a year. I don't know how they spend it. It's a non-profit. How did they make $300 million? It's because of the Google browser. Yes, the Google search is the default engine, and Google paid $300 million for it. Okay?
They switched to Yahoo.
They just switched to Yahoo. Well, the price.
Too much competition.
Well, it just means that Yahoo paid more. I think that there are both.
Maybe they do both.
Okay,
Makes
but the
sense.
point here is like I believe in for-profit companies because you have a different set of incentives. You can bring people to work on this in a totally different way. Let's give you an example of microfinance in India. At the beginning, it was people donating money to lend people money. And then they finally decided that the pool of money is too small. So what they do is that they guarantee a small amount, pretty much, because people do return the money. They pretty much guarantee a small amount of return, and now the program blossomed. A lot of people can donate money, can put money into the microfinance to make it happen. So I really believe in the having market economy to fuel the system. Okay, I can hire much better, and this can scale up, and I can get VCs to put money in it at the early stage. Okay, if I'm going to do non-profit, I don't think I will even have a chance. Now, turn around and say, how do we make money? We just talked about how much money Wechat made. So what do? They promote games. So we will do the same thing. We will have a place where you will find games, and I won't charge 85%. But it is an open market, and we will be able to make some money out of it.
One more question, I guess. Thank you for a very nice talk. I got 10 of your papers which I'm reading also.
Thank you.
I have a question. I was reading somewhere which says that the privacy is dead. It's
Yes.
not even worry about it.
Yes.
Here is the statement which makes, I want your comment. The only person who has privacy
I know who said it.
is this person who lives on Mount Everest on 25,000 feet where no one exists. That is the only person. On the other hand, we all should have a right to security. Security is based on trust, social responsibility, and mutual obligation. In other words, they're making a distinction privacy and security. What's your comment?
Can you repeat the question?
Well, there is a quote. It's kind of for me to reproduce that quote, but it is about that nobody needs privacy because then you will be an island on your own, but people want to have security so that I suppose that data will be respected and all the things that follow from it. Is that fair?
Yeah.
So I think that the word privacy scares people. They always think of privacy as saying, I'm not letting people know about that stuff. But this is why we keep talking about data ownership, right? So no kid would say, no, I don't want to own my data. Right? They understand that much. The fact that sharing doesn't mean that you don't, the fact that you have privacy doesn't mean that you don't share. I think that is really convoluted. But what I believe in is that you need to be able to share, and you need to control how the sharing is done according to what you want to do. And then the security and it'll all go with it. And I really don't know how we got to where we are today. It is really a small number of people who know how to build things, and they make it very easy for people to use, and they keep they keep changing the privacy policies so people get more and more comfortable and letting people, letting these technologists do whatever they want. And I think that there are people who fight it in many different ways through the government or whatever. But I always believe in the fact that, it's too late to wait for people to call this a monopoly. By the time that happens, those companies are almost dead. Okay? It happens time and again. And the right thing to do is for the technologists to say, we know of a different world that we can build, but somehow the academia or people who know a lot of technology seems to be out of touch with what is going on in the real world. That's how the x86 versus the RISC, the OS, it happened over and over again. But this time it is really our data ownership at risk. And this is something that I think we really need to work on.
Okay, I guess we have to wrap it up. We're already 10 minutes late. Thank you again.
Well, thank you.